Hello and welcome to episode 261 of the 21st Century Work-Life podcast, which is a bonus episode where I talk to Bart van Roey and Viviane Kock about a dialogue book that they co-authored with 4 other authors. And the book is called Beyond New Ways of Working. Now, the book is in Dutch, so I thought it was great that Bart and Viviane could come and give us a summary of the book in English. And I'm very happy to say that the conversation took us beyond looking at new ways of working in organizations, and it took us into the possibilities of co-creating a world of work and a society that is more flexible, truly flexible, and more inclusive. So the kind of conversation we love to have on this podcast, which, as regular listeners will know, is all about leading remote teams, online collaboration, and distributed organizations. I almost forgot because I usually have an intro saying all this. And if we haven't met before, if you're a new listener, my name is Pilar Orti, and I am the director of Virtual Not Distant, where we support managers in making the transition to remote, and we support organizations through an in-house podcasting service to keep your people connected regardless of where they are. For more on all of this, just go to virtualnotdistant.com. And if you want anything from me personally, you can email me Pilar, Pilar, at virtualnotdistant.com. Okay, well, I'll be back for a couple of minutes after my chat with our 2 lovely guests. Enjoy. I am delighted to have Bart van Roey, and I don't know if that's how you say her surname, Bart.
Quite close. That's
quite
good.
Close, almost. Who is actually someone I've met online and have known for now a few years. So I am really delighted. I've been wanting to have you on the show for ages. But with him is also Viviane Kock. So I'm really delighted to have one of his friends.
Hello, Pilar.
Hello. So, Bart, you do training and you advise on digital collaboration. And Viviane, you run consultancy and training for managers of remote teams and indeed their teams. So that's the headline. But before we go into this book that you've written, which in English is called Beyond New Ways of Working, a dialogue book, and voor wij het nieuwe werken en dialogue book in like kind of husband Dutch, because my husband's Dutch.
It's good.
Before we go into the book, just you give us just a couple of sentences about what it is that you do professionally. Bart, do you want to kick us off?
Okay, thank you, Pilar, and it's indeed a pleasure to be here. I've been listening to the podcast for so many years, and so it's a pleasure to be here now today. So yes, what I do is I do a lot of training of people in the use of these wonderful new tools, because sometimes we assume that it's evident for everybody to use them, but still, like many hidden features, you don't see or you will not discover. So that's why I do training on, for instance, Microsoft OneNote or Confluence by Atlassian. That's 2 trainings I do a lot. And I do also advice on how to use them or how to apply these new ways of working in organizations. So that is what I do indeed.
Yeah, you're a real advocate, especially when I first met you. It's called OneNote, isn't it? The Microsoft. Yes, so I did have a look. I've never warmed to it, but more than anything because I'm not part of that ecosystem. But it is really nice. I can see as a collaboration tool, really nice.
Yes, it's really powerful. Maybe I can invite you to a free online a demo session of it so you can see the power.
So, Viviane, what about you? What do you do? And actually, where are you? Because I forgot to ask Bart where
yes,
you are.
We are located in Belgium. For myself in Brussels, for Bart it's in Antwerp. Concerning my business, I'm helping organizations to implement remote working, and I'm doing this with consultancy, mostly about change of culture, and then changing about mentalities, behavior, and skills. And for those mindset and skills, I'm giving training for managers, teams, and remote workers.
Well, welcome both. I am also really delighted to have you calling in from Belgium, because it's a country that we haven't had represented on the show yet. We've had a little bit from the neighbor Netherlands with Lisette Sutherland, who used to co-host, and Teresa Sigilito, and of course the ever-presence of my husband, who's always present in a strange way on my mind, let's just say. So it's really nice just to see, and also to hear that you have co-authored a book about the future of work, about new ways of working. In Dutch, I believe it's written.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm also really pleased about that because, of course, while it's fantastic for me that there's so much literature and so much conversation going on in English, I'm often worried that if everything is coming out in the same language, it's a culture that is perpetuating, if that's the word. And where are the local ways of working and the local ways of describing? So thank you very much for doing that, for contributing to the worldwide conversation in a different language. So I think I'd like to hear about where the idea for the book started, because it didn't start during COVID.
No, a couple of years earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Bart, seeing as you've already started to take us back in time, do you want to just tell us how the book idea started? And Viviane, just butt in whenever you think is necessary.
The idea came when I ran into two kinds of people actually. And one group of people were those who were already going through a process of the new way of work and home working. And they had really amazing stories to tell, and they were really passionate about what they had experienced and what went well and what didn't, how they adapted, etc. And on the other side, I ran into people who said, yes, Bart, are already a lot of companies working in this new way, and how do they do that? And then I said to myself, well, maybe we should bring those two groups of people together and create something together so that they can learn from each other. And that was really the origin of the book. And then I went to look for other people who could co-write with me, because like you have the usual bricks, bytes, and behavior, and those were topics we definitely wanted to address. And so we have found people who are willing to write about those. But then we added actually two other topics, and one was process, which was written by Carla Gotts. And process is about, okay, what does this organization do and how will it change? And then the fifth element, the fifth theme was remote, and that was Viviane, who is with us. Maybe I can hand the word now to Viviane. Tell us a little bit about that.
Excellent. Let me just recap with listeners. You said bricks, bytes, behavior, and then process and remote. So the bytes like digital bytes?
Yes. Actually, in the book, we have called the behavior, we've called people, and that's Annelies Boulaert who has written that section. Process tools is the bytes, so that's the section I have written. And bricks was done by Gert Steegmans, and remote by Viviane.
Excellent. So really nice. So you wanted to do this and you thought, okay, where is my expertise? What else do I need? Go out. And Viviane, this is where, of course, you came in along with other collaborators.
Yes, I can only say that networking gives so many opportunities, because I met Bart. He was just sitting next to me doing a network conference about the new ways of working. So we started to chat. And when I said remote, the word began to sparkle. And then he gave me the offer to write with him this book. So it was a very good adventure.
Yeah, it was indeed.
What's the word for remote in Dutch, Viviane?
Thuiswerken, telewerken. Remote is the best word, I must say, because in Belgium, and Bart can confirm me this, we say a lot télétravail, telework, but it doesn't mean that you work from home. And remote is much larger. And I hope that all the companies will go much farther than just their own home.
Although now with the COVID, it's been back to home in many cases, because it's still difficult, like to go to co-working spaces. Now, what is important about the book is maybe not so much the authors, but that we have interviewed a lot of organizations on what they were doing. And so for each organization, we have interviewed 5 people, because we were 5 teams. And so we have interviewed 5 people. And those interviews were a big part of the first work of the book. They are also in the book now with pictures and with the lessons learned from the people we've interviewed, and we've combined that with our own expertise and our own insights, actually.
Yes, and if I can add, Bart, we were very transparent with those cases which we interviewed, because we didn't want to have a commercial book. So we wanted to be honest, and to have the real backstage stories, right, Bart?
Yeah. Yeah, so indeed, like not only the good news, but also the things that didn't work out fine, and that they had to adapt those learnings, make it concrete and make it realistic, and make it also relevant for other people who are also going through sometimes the same endeavors.
Well, I always think the best advocacy needs the dark side, or needs that doesn't work in this scenario, or that didn't work, because if you don't present that side, it will be on people's minds anyway, and it will go unanswered. So that's really nice, and I'm sure it makes for a much more entertaining book also.
It does.
It's true.
Okay, so we're getting this picture of there's lots of input from others through the interviews. That's 5 of you in there. So was it a case then, I think you were mentioning, of one co-author looking after one piece of each book?
Actually, in the full process of the creation of the book, we first had a digital book, and that book was in OneNote, no surprise, and that was structured by case. And so for each case, we showed the interview of each person that we interviewed. Now, for the paper book, we changed a little bit the structure, and that was theme per theme, so that for each author could explain what the challenges are for each theme, and how learnings from the cases could be useful, and to establish actually a coherent methodology, because that's also one of the ambitions of the book, is to be really concrete and to enable the people to apply things that they learn from the book in their day-to-day work with the topics.
And what were the topics then? You've mentioned them, but can you go into a little bit more detail of what each topic covers?
The first topic is people, and that is about how the behavior and the learning styles and the leadership styles of the people should evolve. For instance, the question of trust is very important. It was covered by Annelies. In the process section covered by Carla, it's about, as I mentioned, what is the organization doing? And for instance, one of the organizations still had paper files that were distributed manually at the beginning of the week to represent the work that they had to do. Now, with the digital work, they couldn't do this paper distribution anymore, and they found actually better ways and a better performance in working with digital files. My theme about the tools is about how to learn which tools can be interesting for our organization, but also how they can be trained, how the employees can learn the tools so they can make efficient use of those tools. BRICS, of course, is about how the office should be changed to enable flex work and other ways of working together and remote. I let Viviane introduce, because that's her topic, of course.
Yes, for remote, we wanted to give some highlights about the implementation. It's not only the digital tools that make it comfortable and efficient to work from home, but also it's a collective agreement that you have to decide. You have to make some choices, you have to make some legal decisions also, and you have to communicate very largely in turn and on a transparent way. And in this book, I like also to tell all the pitfalls that can happen when you work from home. If it's only one day a week, then you can't expect really what you might have as discomfort or pitfalls. But especially during COVID now, people really realize that it's not each day a beautiful day when you work from home. And that if you don't settle some crucial tips and tricks for mental health, physical health, on relational level with yourself, with your family and your colleagues, and also for your space, for your working space, then there might be a risk that you don't like to work from home, and it will be very pity.
Yeah. And does the chapter cover just working from home, or in general working apart from each other? Do you touch any other setups?
I'm speaking a little bit about hybrid collaboration, indeed, and this is the strength of the digital tools. So indeed, I'm speaking about this, but it's mostly oriented for HR, how they have to implement it, and that once the implementation has been done, that they have to think also about training to evolve in skills.
The training, whether it's through reflection, through new skills, through change of mindset, through, and in skills, you have all sorts of stuff. You have the management skills, you have, like you say, the caring skills, you have the emotional intelligence skills. It's huge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And also the formal training and the formal online training is also still a very important part, because people need to allocate really time to learn about it. And it's the time allocation that is missing when you do a lot of informal training, and that's good to do informal training. But in formal training, you can also establish procedures or agree on okay, in this team, how are we going to apply the tools in this team, and that can be different from another team. So each team needs to go through a learning cycle.
Yeah, nice. Bart, do you want to tell us a bit more about all of that, about the chapter that you put together, which looks at precisely what you're saying, the whole digital space and just talk us through it. I'll let you.
Okay, thank you. So it's about the maturity. So it's a maturity model which looks at, okay, what is our current understanding? What is our current use of tools? And it's a model that helps you to establish the current situation and then to create a roadmap of actions that you can take to evolve, to grow in the maturity. And so, for instance, you can see, like for chat applications, okay, do we have an application that enables us to do fast communication with each other, for instance, via a chat tool? If you don't have a tool, then you need to get a tool. If you have a tool, then maybe the issue is that it's not known enough, that people are not using it because it's not known enough. If that is the issue, then you can provide training. If training is there, but still people are not using it, maybe it's because people are reluctant to use the chat tool. And maybe they are right. Because, for instance, if the chat tool is WhatsApp, they can say, okay, I can use WhatsApp with my work now, but I don't like to do that because I receive WhatsApp messages also in the evening, whereas I only want to be working during my working hours, and I would like to start working at 6 in the evening. And if my boss wants to work late, okay, he's good, right? But I don't want to receive messages in the evening. So then it can be a little bit of culture and some habits that you need to create, or some agreements that you have to create. And that's another level of maturity that you should try to achieve.
Can I ask you something there? Because I think you bring up a very interesting point. You said about there might be some resistance to the tool and to listen to it. Because I think this is something that in our enthusiasm, especially, maybe I'm projecting in my enthusiasm for, trying to get people to understand how these tools can help them to collaborate better. There's that resistance. And I often hear that the resistance is, they're usually age is blamed and generation, which, to be honest, I'm not,
No.
I don't, that for me goes to one side. I do not, it's a very different story.
It doesn't work anymore like that, no.
Is it, people say it's about generation, or it's about, I don't know, it might be whatever. Usually it's work overload, because people don't have time to that. But I think it's very important to listen to that resistance and what that is saying about what is happening.
Yes. And that's also actually why dialogue is such an important word in our books. It's the subtitle is Dialoogboek. One, because it was based on a dialogue with people that we've interviewed. It was also the dialogue that went on within the team of authors, but it's also the importance of the dialogue within the organization. And you need to establish indeed a platform for the dialogue about, okay, how are we going to work in the future? And often you indeed have people who are blocking some elements, but on the other hand, they will also asking for improvement, or they will have their own agenda a little bit. And one of the elements is that you need to be open to change the agenda or to work with teams that are brought up by the employees.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So I interrupted you. Did you have another point you wanted to move on to, Bart?
That's the different steps in the maturity. Is there a tool, and is it future proof? Is it integrated with the processes, or that's the level actually I left that in my first. So you can have a chat tool, but if the chat tool intervenes with the normal processes, then either the processes should be adapted and made in line with the chat feature, or you should not use chat for certain processes, because there are other ways to work properly in the process challenges. And then the final step is the integration with the culture. And there either you can try to change the culture, which is very well possible, or you adapt the tools so that they fit with the culture in the organization.
That point about interference also is very important. About if a tool is interfering with the work, then there's something, it might not be the right tool, or it might be that it's not the right tool for that process, or it's really complicated. It's not just, let's use whatever. This is the beauty of it. You really have to think about how you work. And then how do you incorporate this?
Yes. And then the challenging thing with tools also is that people sometimes start using their own tool. They say, okay, from the organization or from IT, I cannot use tools to share large files, so I will start using Dropbox. And it's what we call guerrilla software. It's like bring your own software they're using. And there was a lot of challenges. So the organization has actually the obligation, it needs to move ahead, because otherwise the individuals in the organization will find their own tools with a lot of challenges.
Yeah, very, very good point. Excellent. Viviane, I think that if you want to talk a little bit more through I don't know, what was it your personal section or theme, or if you want to add indeed anything around what Bart was saying, because the overlap is huge.
All the bricks by behavior, process, and so on, it's a domino system. So if you touch one topic, you have to work on all the other ones. And this was maybe the biggest pitfall for organizations, is to focus first on bytes or even bricks, because it's something that you can touch. It's but the other things is more about reflecting, thinking, taking some decision, behavior, and so on. That's why the implementation, it's not done in 24 hours. You need a maturity also to think about some issues and not to decide too quickly. What I'm seeing a lot is a copy-paste system, do-it-yourself system. They are finding a lot of information on internet, and it's a good first step, but don't stick to it and go further, because otherwise you are doing copy-paste about certain resistance that you are scared for several issues, and that you will see on legal issues very often also. Implementation is very important so that management can also understand the biggest aspect in flexible work is human-centered and not the productivity. Productivity will come after, once you have the focus on human also. So this is really important, that companies don't think, well, it seems that we are more concentrated from home, so I can upgrade the performance. So there might be also some perversity unconsciously, but it happened. And still with COVID, I must say some managers have learned to trust people, but only for that period. So, so this mindset, there are, for the moment during COVID, they are doing quite nice steps, I must say. It's nice to see. But if you really want to create some roots in your mindset and behavior, I wish them that they are open for consultancy and training, because they are still in a crisis stadium, and it's not a deep change.
Yeah, and the change has happened. This is like so not what we were hoping for, that the change has happened without being planned or without being welcomed.
It must hurt, huh?
Yeah,
as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like people were working from home, but also the children were at home. Yeah. And then often that gives a very bad image actually of the actual productivity you can have, or the actual joy, because it's like combined with a lot of frustration or distraction from the children.
It's really interesting, all of that. So let's go back to the new ways of working before COVID and post COVID, which it's interesting how, I mean, that's a whole new conversation about how the image of remote work and how COVID has enhanced it or to its detriment. How about any other bits of the book that you would like to highlight, either from your own chapters or from something that one of your co-authors wrote?
one element that is very important, or that we try to create, is that the book is a dialogue book. And a dialogue book, I think if you look it up, it's something that really doesn't exist yet. But it's the ambition of the book is to create a platform for a dialogue between the readers and the authors, but also between the readers among each other, and to exchange questions and answers and what they find and what they like and what they didn't like. And so we have an online platform which is currently on Yammer, where people who are reading the book are invited to join us and to continue that dialogue. And that's also something very important, I think, because today it's not anymore about, okay, this is how we see it and this is how it is. Now it's a dialogue, it changes, it evolves, and we listen to the readers as well. And that's something which is really rather special about the book. Everybody is also invited to join us via the website, although I must say it's indeed currently in Dutch, but the title of the website is English. futureofworkbe.org is the website where you also have links to the book and to the online community.
Did you say it's in Yammer, in the Microsoft social, and that is open?
Yes, it's open so that everybody can join. You don't need to have the book or have read the book, but it's in the context of the book, so it's a little bit natural that you have the book. But indeed, it's an open online platform. So if they submit their email address, they get a link to the Yammer community.
And what's happening in that community, or what do you expect to happen? So are people commenting on bits about the book? Are they giving their experiences? Are they asking questions? What's going on there for those of us who don't understand Dutch?
Well, it's indeed all of the above. So it's indeed a discussion on any of the topics of the book is relevant. And so currently it's in Yammer, but there is also a plan to have a second section where you can have discussions in the sideline of the book. So if you're reading the book, you have the text of the book, and on the side, sometimes people make notes with a pencil on the book. The idea is that you do those pencil notes or questions, or like, I don't agree with this, that you put it in the sideline of the book, and so that others can also see it, and you can have a discussion.
And would this be in OneNote or in another?
Yes, it will be in OneNote.
I think you really should share this, because this is just not about the new ways of working. It's about new ways of reading also, and new ways of learning.
I'm glad you say this, yes.
Yeah. Because I don't know, listeners, if you have heard of anything similar, then let us know, pilar@virtualnotdistant.com. But from my understanding, this is really powerful. And it would be nice just for more people to hear that this is happening, even if they can't engage, because at this point, for these listeners, for the language. Yeah, that's really good.
By the way, talking about language, if there would be a publishing house who would be interested in translate our book and publish it in English, we are open to these opportunities.
Great. So listeners, pilar@virtualnotdistant.com, and I will pass it over. Or contact through their website, which again is
futureofworkbe.org. So the BE still is part of the main domain, and so you can reach me also at bart@futureofworkbe.org.
Excellent. Good. So there's a call to action for anyone who would like to translate the book from Dutch. Viviane, any other aspects of the book that you would particularly like to share with listeners?
I would like to share something for the future. We are speaking a lot about diversity on the work floor. And if there's something that makes really sense for my job, is to reinforce diversity for handicapped people with remote working. Yeah. So disabled persons can experience career nice skills with the fact that you can work from home. Yeah. And this is something that is not explored very much for the moment. And it's really the future. Some people are ill and need some specific medical treatments that will maybe change their rhythm of working hours. But with flexible work, this is perfect also. And Bart, you want to tell something?
Yes, because indeed, like the place where you live can be far from a major city, and in the past you had to move to the big city to be able to do the work at the firms in the city. But now you don't need to do that, and I think Pilar have heard on other episodes also talking about these new opportunities, and indeed, I think it's going to be important in the next couple of years, where people can choose where they live, and if they're disabled, they can't leave their house, they can still work for companies. So Viviane, very good point.
Yes, and the organizations, they mostly think diversity with recruitment, but they don't have a plan B, a B plan, like for remote working, for example, with the COVID, we have seen this, but also for keeping your talents in-house. Once they have an accident, and 80% of handicaps happen during your life, it's not when you are born. And how do organizations keep those talents in-house when a handicap is coming up? So, and remote working is also for this part.
That's a really great point, very important, and a conversation I haven't quite heard yet. That kind. There's a lot of. We're talking a lot about diversity regarding race as well a lot of the time now, and location. I think we're ready now to jump onto what are the opportunities? How can we make remote work help us create a truly flexible environment so that we can truly be more inclusive? In all these different ways. I mean, it's really interesting because it's so many conversations that need to be happening in parallel. And hopefully there will be the space at some point because...
I hope also. So if people want to contact me to move on in the subject, I will be more than glad.
Excellent, Viviane. Good. So... what then is the future of work in Belgium? Huge with your crystal balls. So maybe a better question is, where is regarding the new ways of working, exploring what technology can bring us in all of these ways that we've been talking about? Where is Belgium now, and where do you think it might be moving towards in the next 3 years? Bart shakes his head and says no idea. So maybe, Viviane, we can start with you.
I don't have a glass ball.
Within those parameters, and knowing that, anything could change, we could have another different kind of world thing happen in 6 months, and all our we could have a major internet glitch, and then we have to reassess everything we're talking about.
Yeah, it's of course one of the weak spots in digital collaboration is that we depend on the digital robustness. So that's really something we need to keep in mind. Other than that, I think in Belgium there is an interesting discussion and dialogue going on how to do remote work, how to do it in a proper way. I love also the element that Viviane mentioned about diversity. So I think it's gonna evolve a lot. And sometimes they say, how will it evolve? We don't know. Can we predict the future? We don't know, but we can try to build the future or create a future together. And so that's one thing that we try to be, a place where we can think about and exchange ideas, and in that way create also a little bit of the future, where we can create a future which is actually also less burnouts, for instance, instead of more, because all these changes have a risk to create burnouts with people who just can't cope with the stress or with the change. And we try to be a place where you can learn on how to do it in a way that will have less burnout people instead of more.
Thank you, Bart. Viviane?
I can tell with the COVID here in Belgium that the Belgian culture is a great observer. They're observing a lot before taking some decisions. Yeah. And so today I must confess, quite disappointed for some time with all the communication that I'm reading on social medias, in the fact that companies still, after 6 months experience of remote working with the COVID context, still are hesitating. And there's a huge confusion between lockdown living and working conditions and remote working in the standard way. And today, maybe there are some companies who are considering remote working as an emergency kit. And maybe we should need, it's quite shocking what I will tell you, but maybe a third lockdown will really help companies to think much more.
Only
but
two, please.
As we say in our, we are in a service business, and we know that it takes much longer to take some decisions for training and consultancy, and it has to hurt somewhere.
There has to be a burning platform.
Indeed. So it's nice. I see many nice activities from companies, but there are still many still thinking, should we come back to the office? And it's pity if companies will take this decision instead of giving the choice to the people themselves, because in the new ways of working, we are in an adult world where you have the choice. If you want to work 3 times a day, 3 times a week at home, and other ones only 1 day, it should be possible.
Yeah.
And still they are thinking, well, we might stop remote working, let's go back. And or if we continue just 1 day a week, so it will be pity, then it's 10 steps back.
Yeah, that's a dialogue we hear a lot. How many days is good to work from home? And there is just no general answer. It depends on so many elements, but still people, organizations are trying to figure out what the number should be. It's not a good question. It depends on the function, the person, its moment in life, and on so many other parameters that you just can't give an answer to that question.
Yes, and it's still considered by some of the organization as a favor, as a gift. And this is the first mistake that you can do, is to communicate about remote working that it's a favor that we give to you. No, it's just another way of working, because your job, your task is possible outside the company. So that's the only reason. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to leave listeners with all these questions, as always. When we're exploring these huge topics, we can't seem to have the answers, because we're still figuring it out. So all we can do is start to pose the right questions, I suppose.
Start a dialogue.
Yes, dialogue. Yes, very, very well themed. So listeners, do send your thoughts, because hopefully if this has resonated with you, if you indeed are in Belgium, or I'll invite you in the Netherlands or in Scandinavia, we haven't had anyone come and tell us what's going on there. Or any part of the world that you think, you know what, I just want other listeners to hear. Just send us a couple of lines, pilar@virtualnotdistant.com, or of course on the website, virtualnotdistant.com. But I want to just give some space to our guests today, Viviane Koch and Bart van Roey.
Thank you very much to you.
So I'll give you some space just to say the one place that listeners can get in touch with you. Viviane, can you go first?
Yes, so we have our global website for our book, which is futureofworkbe.org. Correct, Bart?
Futureofworkbe.org.
We'll put the link in the show notes. Don't worry.
And otherwise, if you are curious for remote working itself, my website is nestyourdesk.be.
That is such a beautiful name, I have to say. Nest Your Desk. I looked it up and it's a nice website. Excellent. So there you go, listeners. And Bart?
Okay, so for me the same, of course, the website of our book, and then my own website is ehop, which is actually a Swedish word for means together, and it's ehop.be.
Excellent. Lovely URLs we all have. Excellent. Well, listeners, this has been a joy. So thank you very much for staying with us. And thank you to our guests. And of course, the book is still in Dutch. It's called, in English, it's Beyond New Ways of Working, a dialogue book. That's the most important thing. As we've heard, that message that is behind the content is this dialogue that we need to keep having if we want to create new ways of working together. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you also, Pilar. Hear you next time.
Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, because it was indeed a pleasure to have both guests in the show. And To be honest, I'd been wanting to get Bart on the show for a while because I knew he was working on this project, which was interesting in a lot of different levels. And I'd been wanting to get him on the podcast for a couple of years, so I'm glad we finally managed it and that he brought Viviane along. It was lovely to meet her too. It's wonderful to have a show because you get to meet great people. I'm so excited that my words are all over the place. I particularly enjoyed where the conversation took us in the second half of the episode. And if you're a relatively new listener and want to continue thinking about one of the things that Viviane said about how remote work can open up opportunities for people with disabilities, then check out episode 180, which is from the 20th of September 2018. It's called Disability and Change at Work. And my colleague Maya Middlemiss talked to Jane Hatton from Even Break there about how they're helping organizations to access a pool of talent which often remains hidden. So check that out, episode 180. And that's it for today. I'll now remind you of how you can stay in touch. Remember that you can subscribe to this show, 21st Century Work Life, in whatever podcast app you use. You can sign up to our monthly newsletter, which has reading and listening recommendations, plus a digest of our own content. And you can sign up over at virtualnotdistant.com. And there's also a contact form and information about what we do, a blog, all the show notes from the podcast. It's full of stuff. You can follow our page on LinkedIn, which is nice and active. So have a look. If you are active on LinkedIn, just look for Virtual Not Distant. And our Twitter account is at Virtual Teamwork with a 0 instead of an O. If email, this is the thing with this 21st century work life. There's so many places, so many communication channels. If email is your thing, then Pilar at virtualnotdistant.com is how you can get in touch with me and let me know your thoughts on this episode. A big, big thank you for listening. A big thank you for listening to the 21st Century Work Life podcast produced by Virtual Not Distant. If you have something to add to the conversation, let us know through the contact form over at virtualnotdistant.com. I have been your host, Pilar Orti, and I'm signing off now. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy.